Hello, everyone, and a very good morning to you all. And welcome to this Institute of Hospitality Continuing Professional Development webinar. My name's Sam Coulstock, and I'm the Head of Professional Development at the Institute. And I'm your host this morning, and I'm joined by an expert panel today to talk about merchandising, supervising sales in the hospitality sector. So before we start and get into the subject, we just have a few housekeeping items to run through first. So throughout the webinar, please do ask questions. You can ask those questions on your function on your screen and send those in, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can towards the end. The webinar is due to last for an hour, so and we'll aim to finish within that hour, but sometimes we go over just by a few minutes, but it'll be about an hour today. And remember that you can use this webinar and this next hour together towards your CPD hours to record this in your members dashboard. It's an aspiration at the Institute that all members, no matter what level you are, complete a minimum of 30 hours of continuing professional development a year. So by attending this today, you've already completed one of those hours out of the 30, but just record that in your members dashboard. Also, today's webinar will be filmed and the recording will be placed on our on-demand channel on the IoH website soon, so you can go back and watch this as and when you need it. So without further ado, let's introduce our panel for today, and I'd like them to introduce themselves, who they are, where they work, but also just to say one thing about why they said I'm in to the Institute of Hospitality. So I'm just going to go around my screen as I see it. So Philip, if I could start with you, please.
Thank you, Sam, and good to meet everyone, and delighted to join this webinar. I'm Philip Steiner, a fellow of the Institute, and general manager is my full-time job at the Bankside Hotel in central London, but I spent the rest of my week as head of luxury and lifestyle hotels for Cycles Hospitality, an international, or European, I should say, white label management company. And for them, I look after hotels in Paris and some in development in Portugal and Ireland. And I'm currently calling in from Paris, France, hence the interesting background. Delighted to join you today and to talk about merchandising. I'm in at the Institute of Hospitality because it's an excellent opportunity to join these kind of webinars and these kind of calls and to learn more about everything that our fantastic industry has to offer, but also to network, to meet different people. I've joined the board of the London region of the Institute from a diversity standpoint, and it just amazes me at every session that we hold and every networking panel discussion that we hold across London, to see how much variety exists in our industry, from catering to restaurants to hotels to training to hospitality flows through everything. So for me, all the reasons to be part of the Institute of Hospitality.
Brilliant, thank you, Philip. And Rob, if I could come to you next.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rob Hood. I'm the Corporate Director of Food and Beverage for Silva Hotel Group in Toronto, Canada. I look after 22 hotels, both branded and an entire boutique division. I'm in with the Institute of Hospitality and particularly this webinar. I've been a member for a long time and becoming a fellow a couple of years ago. This has always been an organization that's done a lot to promote our business, not just for those of us who are in it, but also for those who we are trying to attract to be part of it, which is a very, very valuable tool, because as we always try to do, we are trying to build legacy, both recruitment, training, and mentor strategy in order to continue our business for future generations to come. So that's the reason why I'm here, and good morning again to everyone.
Brilliant, thank you, Rob. And Kat, if you can introduce
Yeah,
yourself.
thanks, Sam. So I'm Kat Raven. I'm a training and development specialist at HIT Training, and we're the market leading specialist apprenticeship and training provider in the UK, specialising within hospitality, catering, and retail industries. I've worked for HIT now for 11 years, but prior to that, I worked for a number of global luxury retailers, including brands within LVMH and Burberry. I think so. For me, I said I'm in to the Institute of Hospitality. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to support the development of my own best practices and CPD, and also to gain further opportunities to learn and connect with other professionals within the industry.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you, Kat. And just apologies that have been sent from CJ, who is from Manchester Met, who was meant to be with us as part of this panel today, but unfortunately has had a last-minute emergency, so has had to drop out about 10 minutes ago. So he sends his apologies. So just moving on then to today's subject, which is all about merchandising and supervising sales, and we'll go on to that in a little bit more detail, but I just want to set the scene really of what does that actually mean, and then we'll unpick some of those comments or those observations in a minute. So supervising sales in the hospitality industry involves a combination of strategic planning, effective communication, staff training, monitoring to ensure that sales targets are met and that merchandising strategies are effectively implemented. Some of the key steps to follow are understanding your market and customers, developing a merchandising strategy, pages are stuck together, train and develop your staff, monitor and manage sales, optimize stock management, leverage technology, marketing and communication, and foster a positive working environment. So the hospitality industry requires a comprehensive approach that integrates understanding customer needs, strategic planning, staff training, performance monitoring, and leveraging technology. By focusing on these areas, you can enhance the customer experience, boost sales, and create a successful strategy. So hopefully that just sets the scene, and we just want to try and unpick a little bit more of that and find out what you guys do in your businesses around those areas. So Philip, maybe if I could come to you first, and just sort of like, how do you do it at Bankside Hotel? How do you develop your marketing and sales strategy there?
Yes, I mean, I think the two elements here to focus on are obviously the sales element, but also the merchandising element. So if I may, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the merchandising first, because I think that's an area where we do something slightly different at Bankside, but not only at Bankside, at the majority of our hotels. We try and create an additional stream of revenue there for our hotels that is ancillary to the sort of traditional elements of a hotel. We try to do that by really understanding what is the reason for our clientele to visit the hotel. So in the case of Bankside, it finds itself on the South Bank area, which is most of you will know is a creative part of London, and so we find a lot of people visiting us with an interest into the arts and the creative sector, and so we've developed additional merchandising streams around that. At the Bankside Hotel, we put it in practice in a couple of very direct ways. Just to give you an example, we run a artist in residence program where we have an artist working creating live art in the hotel. We sell the pieces of art that artist creates. We do this through a couple of ways. We have a wine hour in the evening that we invite our guests for free of charge, and the artist is present there, usually creates art, and it's a way to expose the art to our guests. Now, that program in itself is a commission-free program, so we don't actually take the revenue of it, but we sell the art for the artist. Then secondary, across the hotel, we have about 300-400 pieces of original art all across the hotel. We sell those proactively to our guests. So it's another way of doing that. And then I think thirdly, another slightly more unusual way of, I suppose, merchandising some of the stuff we do in the hotel is the luxury vending machines we have in the hotel. Part of our sustainability drive is reducing the impact of the small minibar fridges that you are used to in a 5-star hotel. We do have the little fridges in the room, but we've removed all of the items out of them for sustainability reasons, and we've created luxury vending machines on every bedroom floor. And what does that mean? They're not your traditional Mars bar, track it down where you throw in a coin. They're more machines where you can buy a bottle of champagne, a bottle of wine, or one of the items you would usually order either through in-room dining or from the minibar, but presented in a more quirky way. We immediately use that vending machine to then sell ancillary items as well and create a social media buzz. So for instance, we have an emergency engagement ring for sale in there. Someone who has the urge to pop a last minute question, you can buy a ring in the vending machine. But we also sell a grand piece of art in the lobby that's called Sparkly Pants. I'll leave towards the imagination what that artwork is. But we have an actual sparkly pants for sale in the vending machine that creates a smile on people's faces. So there are lots of creative ways in which we sell ancillary services and ancillary amenities and items in the hotel through laughter, through social and engaging moments in different ways. So hopefully that gives a bit of a flavor on that side and how we do that at Bankside.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Philip. Rob, from your point of view out there in Canada, what are you doing in your group around this whole sales and merchandising element within the hotels?
It's been kind of funny, COVID changed everything, and I hate to go back to COVID because everyone's kind of saying, pre and post pandemic, but it really did change everything. One of our senior leaders, said, for the stay experience, you sort of have to put your head outside the window to figure out what city you're in, because everything was pretty much the same. Everything that was done was the same. And so, both within branded and our sort of boutique division, to build on what Philip was saying, we run a number of artist in residence programs, but it's not just art, it's musicians, it's spoken word, it's poetry, it's all kinds of pieces. And I guess the sort of key for this is twofold. One, guests are looking for a full experiential experience now. They do not just want to buy a t-shirt. It is way, way, way beyond that. Our guest types now have become so sophisticated that they will go to boutique hotels just because we are, I don't know, we have a session musician who'll be playing for that particular amount of nights, or there is going to be a big piece of performance art. And we've turned a lot of what used to be, that traditional lobby space both into, we call them multi-use spaces now, because, the good old days with the couches and the big old coffee tables, and, it was always very, very sad for a long time, now become interactive phone booths, vinyl listening lounges, and that kind of space where people can, either gather as a group or just sit on their own and kind of get that full piece. And as far as that sort of retail piece goes, guests want to take a piece of their experience from their stay home with them. It needs to be unique. It needs to be innovative. And yes, we for some of our social houses, they do want to buy the same T-shirt that the mixologist is wearing, and that's great. I mean, that's an easy sell. But we also do. One of our hotels actually does a bee program where in the summer we have live bees, which are curated by beekeepers safely outside while you're eating breakfast, and then you can actually buy that same honey to remove, and that's part of a sort of equitable farming nonprofit piece too, so they can actually contribute to the local community while they're there. And I guess my third part to this is, yeah, a lot of it is local community vendors. Like, you know, we still sell mainstream brands pretty much everywhere, and that's sort of to be expected. But, you know, for people to understand that, you know, someone who is artisan or someone who runs a small business that then gets promoted through us, that they get to put on a plane and take to the other side of the world is a really powerful thing for them. And right now they can't get enough of it, which is just wonderful.
That's amazing. And I guess when you think of like restaurants as well, you know, you've got cookbooks that can be sold by the chef and all of that sort of, you know, taking a little bit of the experience home with you. Kat, if thinking about your background of luxury retail as well as, you know, what you do now in hospitality, that whole customer service training and development element is so really your bag as a hit. So how challenging is it to encourage our customer service training to think about sales ultimately? That's what we want them to do, don't we?
Yeah, I
Upsell and
think
sell.
kind of, yeah, but I think it's, you know, retail and hospitality are two industries that kind of marry well together, building on, again, what Philip and Rob have both said, you know, that it very much is that immersive experiential element that our consumers, that our customers are looking for, and that piece around merchandising within retail and so hospitality absolutely has been around creating that desirability, being able to stay relevant, you know, for us as professionals to kind of drive the visibility and engagement that we have through those creative ways. And both Rob and Philip then spoke about kind of that element of understanding their market and their customer, you know, that very quirky sort of vending machines, but that element of luxury, of fun, of those events that you talk about, the music and the things that you have to kind of build on that. You know, retailers have been trying to build on that immersive experience. You know, there's fitness apparel brands that have studio space above their stores to kind of build in that. I think it was in the States. Yeah, LVMH, Dior, and Beverly Hills Hotel worked in collaboration around a summer event. So they kind of decked out the hotel and the pool area, and then you could buy the apparel. And I think as a hospitality industry, we're so well placed to build in that retail element. You know, it's not just, as you said, the hotel lobby store anymore. You've got sort of vineyards, coffee shops, restaurants, spas, you know, where you have a product to sell. So you do need to think about that merchandising and that sales. And I think that element of customer service, if we are, I think, motivating our teams, people understanding the reasons why, as much as we need to understand our customers and our target market to make sure we're getting it right, we need to know who we have within our hospitality teams so that we can understand what motivates them to do what they do. If we can then educate and train them around kind of the knowledge, the skills and behaviours that they need, regardless of whichever area of industry they're in, so that they can really tailor and elevate and enhance what they provide to our customers. That's where that customer service absolutely comes into its own there. You know, you're building that rapport and engagement with your customers.
Absolutely, Kat. And I think some of the resistance that I've come across when in like the L&D world is that when, you know, you're trying to do sales training, is the resistance that comes back is that, well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a brilliant waiter, I'm a brilliant mixologist, but I don't do sales. And actually, it's that change of mindset. So you are in sales, you know, just by delivering what you're delivering is sales.
And it can come into then that passion for your product, that alignment with your own values, with the brand that you're working for, that it comes into your general commercial awareness, your product knowledge, that all of those things, you know, people don't necessarily want to be sold to anymore, regardless of whether you're in retail, whether you're in hospitality, whether you're in a more kind of sales dominant environment. If you're able to educate and share that passion and knowledge and engagement, you know, if we know why our customers come to our hotel, they know why they come to our vineyards, we're then able to tap into what's of value to that person. We're able to identify kind of what their needs and wants and expectations are, and we can then hone our customer service around that, and that then naturally fits in to that sales piece that you're talking about. It's more knowledge and passion, I think, a lot of the time.
That's a great point, actually. The one bit I want to sort of, if I could be so bold, is that we sort of need to rename hospitality as in we are in the lifestyle industry.
Yeah.
You know, hospitality is a little too formal, it's a little too sticky, it's a little too basis. And Kat, you're completely right. I mean, people, they don't want to be sold to anymore. And what we have known as a product in the past is not necessarily what the product is now. You know, lifestyle and the way people live their lives is very, very different than it was 25, 30 years ago. You know, they are looking for different things. They are looking to be extremely immersive in terms of, you know, when they go to a property, and I'm going to use a brand example like Hoxton by Hilton. I mean, they're so far ahead of the curve in terms of what hotels are going to be. It's unreal, because people go there for like 30 different reasons. It's not a meeting, it's not a social interaction, it's not just dinner. And you know, to build on what you were saying, with, you know, bartenders and front desk people and servers who would claim that, you know, we're not in the sales business, they take it to another dimension where if a guest is interested, and because guests are interested in what we do as a job or as an industry, if they want to learn how to make an espresso martini, that bartender will stop and actually run a masterclass for 3 minutes and tell them how to do it. And that's the experiential merchandising that people take away and go, I'm going to go back there because that was the most optimum experience that I had.
Yeah, and I think it comes in across, sorry, Philip, I think it comes in across all levels as well. You know, some of the brands and areas of industry that we're talking about, and maybe from our own experiences, are kind of that very high end, that very luxury. It absolutely filters into all levels of the industry, whether you are working in an independent coffee shop, whether you are working in a small local, you know, once you then understand your market and your customer, you know, your demographic, your psychographics, behavior, how our customers engage with us, you can then tailor kind of what you're delivering in terms of that customer service, in terms of that experience to meet customers at those different levels. And I think there's so much opportunity to grow and expand that kind of immersive experiential element of the industry that we work in.
Yeah, and I was going to add, because I 100% agree with Kath and Rob, but the key for me here is authenticity. In the current space, and where, like Rob said earlier, the current guest or the current visitor is looking for a place like nothing else. Where 10 years ago or 20 years ago, there was this feeling of creating spaces that are a home away from home, i.e. the same, you know, people are looking for the comfort of their home somewhere else. That has flipped completely upside down, and people are looking for something that doesn't reflect home, but that reflects its local area, but is authentic and isn't being created. And I think for me, that's the key in this space. And if you're trying to sell more, you have to create an authentic offering that suits your audience. And so what Kat just said is so relevant here. Understand your audience. You know, the example Rob gave around, you know, for instance, Hoxton or some of these other kind of fantastic spaces. If your audience is a corporate catering, you know, clientele, that might not work, or it might work. It really depends on your audience. It's really understanding your audience and then creating that around it. And I think the thing to say there is, I suppose, the trend of influencers influencing people through social media showcases this like nothing else. Why do people buy through, the indirect sales? They're not being sold to. They see someone who they identify with. They see someone who creates and enjoys the kind of things they identify with, and they want to have the same. And it's almost creating that in your work environment, be it a hotel, being at a restaurant, being in a corporate catering environment. If you create something that people feel they can identify with and that is authentic, they will want to buy. And so everyone is, per definition, a salesperson.
That is a powerful statement, and I just want to add two things to that. First of all, I believe we're in the age of standardized unstandardization, if that makes any sense. We have moved on from the binders where everything is set in stone. No, it doesn't, because people don't want it anymore. I don't want the same thing that Philip Bocat had yesterday. I want my own thing. And Philip, you just hit on a huge piece that I'd forgotten about, that we actually threw an event 3 months ago for a brand new boutique opening. And in the good old days, when you did an opening, you'd invite a bunch of industry people who would come and drink your booze and eat your food and say good things and then leave and then try and rip you off in their own properties later on, which was a complete waste of money, but it was just the way it was done. When we did this boutique property, we actually threw a social influencer party, which is the first one I'd ever done. And it was a completely different vibe. And it was just a bunch of people who took pictures of things, posted it. And then we started having all this interest from people walking off the street. And you'd go, well, did you, respond to our direct marketing or whatever else we were doing? And they go, no, we saw your event posted the other night. We want to come and try, whatever cocktail we had. We really enjoyed the menu presentation, and that is the key to this now. That indirect sales piece is vital, and it's incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And I think that really comes in then when you're thinking about your developing that merchandising strategy, knowing who is your target audience, what is your brand's image, where are you merchandising, how are you marketing, is it online, is it through influencers, is it those indirect sales that actually people are looking more aspirationally? I think you can Google and pull up what happens in an internet minute, and it's astounding, starting in the industry however long ago to now, the amount of YouTube hits, emails sent, minutes spent on TikTok, on Snapchat, on Instagram, it's so vast. And I think as looking to build merchandising and sales and hospitality, we really do need to think about leveraging that technology. How are we marketing? Where are we doing that? How are we influencing our customers? Because we've got that understanding of how they engage with us, why they engage with us, and we can kind of tap into that authentically. Absolutely. And I think that you really raised a good point there. They want that structured, non-structured. They need, our customers want that consistency. They want those standards that they expect and that they've experienced before, but they want it very kind of tailored and flexible and fluid, but still that consistency of standard and experience and product and service. I think we've got a tough job, but it's, again, there's so much opportunity there. And that's kind of one of the things that I suppose within apprenticeships that we kind of focus on. It's again building and elevating on the knowledge, skills and behaviours that our learners have, not just of the industry but of their own place of work. There's a lot that we build into our apprenticeships around commercial awareness, understanding the vision, mission, values of business in which they work, who their customers are, pulling out kind of industry trends, how they respond to those, and being able to kind of look at the features, advantages and benefits of the products and services that they provide to their individual customers.
Kat, if I just go back on to one of the points you talked about earlier, and maybe this is a question for you, Philip, actually, is around that online presence, because you obviously can't sell your vending machine stuff online, because they're sort of like instantaneous, spontaneous purchasing. But what do you do online? Have you got an online presence? Are you talking about your vending machines, for example, in your social media posts? Is that being, are you doing Insta stories on it, etc.? How do you get people excited before they come, or is it, oh, it's a surprise when they're there? What's your marketing strategy around that for merchandising?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in our case, our main brand channels, so think, Instagram or LinkedIn or for the hotel itself, each serve a specific purpose, right? So, for instance, Instagram of the hotel really tries to tell the story of the hotel and the experience and the feeling you get when you walk through the doors of our hotel. That channel is not meant to create a sales environment where you're selling bedrooms or selling the vending machine. The idea of the vending machines is essentially the reason we added things like the sparkly pens or the emergency engagement ring is to let it do its own marketing. Because what happens is someone walks on the bedroom floor, thinks, oh, this is vending machines, and touches the screen and plays around and think, an emergency engagement ring? What is that? And most people have a smile like you just had and think, oh, that is funny or quirky. They might take a photo, they might send that to someone who just got engaged or as a joke, they might post about it, and that will do the work in itself. I think nowadays people buy by association. If you're trying to sell directly and you're sort of putting up a post saying, look at our fantastic vending machines and our emergency engagement rings, you will lose the engagement of the audience. In fact, you're probably missing the spot. It's the indirect sales that does the work for itself, and so it's driving different engagement things, different elements throughout the stay of a guest, throughout the experience, throughout the property, that in itself creates sale moments and opportunities. For instance, when we have the artist studio and the artist is working, we will do exhibitions around their artworks, not to sell them pieces, but to invite people to experience the art. They might end up buying as a result of it. They might end up sharing photos of that. To Rob's earlier example, we have bees on the rooftop as well. We use the honey not to sell actually, but we use it in cocktails and different elements throughout the stay during breakfast for people to enjoy that. And they will automatically, as a result, will want to share that with others. So they might end up buying a jar to bring home to tell others about the hotel. We're not actually actively selling, if that makes sense. So back to your question, we use each channel, each social media channel or each marketing channel in a different way with a different purpose. And that might be sometimes just sharing an immersive experience of the hotel. It might be, for instance, on LinkedIn to talk more about employer branding. But the actual direct selling is mostly done indirectly through trying to create moments that people will want to share.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Back when I was in retail, we were looking at ways and opportunities to bring people in, to have that captured audience. How can we increase footfall? How can we bring people into store? How can we get them with us so that we can then have them here to create those experiences? Whereas I think within hospitality, we are in that prime position that people are coming to us for those experiences, to stay in our hotels. I went on a vineyard tour a little while ago, and that was for the experience. And obviously at the end we did a tasting, and you could then choose to purchase the wine. You go to a spa, you have a massage. There's then that opportunity to purchase the products that had been used. Philip, I think when we would kind of do the run through of this, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe with like the robes or the slippers that are provided in the room, that guests can then purchase them. Those opportunities present themselves, don't they? So maybe we're using social media to let our customers know that we're there. This is our brand. This is our, to get them to us to enjoy those experiences. And then those opportunities perhaps much more holistically present themselves for that sales piece, because they're with us already. They're using our products. They're enjoying our services. And we can then kind of build in the sales on top of that, because they they're already using that product or that service. They want it. They're enjoying it. It's meeting a particular need or feeding a certain demand.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. I'm just conscious that we're probably talking here to a panel that are from big business. You know, you've got resources, you've got lots of clever people that are thinking about this all the time. And some of our members at the Institute are in organisations or businesses that are SMEs. You know, they're small, medium enterprises. They might be on their own. It might be a couple business. They're varying sizes. How do they do this? You know, you're a single site restaurant, for example. How do you do merchandising in a little restaurant that you run?
I
What's the
suppose
best
it
ways of
depends
doing that?
what you're wanting to merchandise. You know, when we think about, merchandising from a visual merchandising point of view, everything that you do from the outside of your site, of your restaurant, of your coffee shop, of your cafe, all of that starts to tell the story. Is it visually appealing? What are you doing with your window displays, your signage? Have you got an A board out the front that you are a chalkboard that you're writing on about what you're offering? The way in which we use colour, that things are clean, that they're tidy. Could be anything from the smells that you have within your site, the lighting, any music. If you think about small promotions, the different seasonality, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day. Are you creating a display? Are you making something eye-catching that says something about the products and the services that you provide? Do you have merchandise to sell? If you're a coffee shop, do you sell your own beans? Do you sell coffee cups that are branded? Do you sell, a cake stand if you're in a small bakery? There's products that are used there. I think you can absolutely do that. How are you drawing attention? Is it well stocked? Is there a range of products? You think about your displays in like a coffee shop, a sandwich shop, things like that. How are you maximizing those opportunities? Even just placement, complementary products together, little things like that make things visually appealing, and your team having that knowledge around product, around stock, around availability. That some of those really sort of introductory ways to start considering merchandising. And also thinking about actually tracking sales using your customer feedback, understanding what customers want, getting that feedback. Is this working? Do they like these seasonal displays? Do they want something different? Utilising that customer feedback again can be a really good way to start that sort of merchandising and sales strategy in your site.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kat. That's really, I think, helpful. And I think, we do have a lot of SME businesses at the Institute that work with us. So all of that sort of, I know one single site restaurant, and they're very good at merchandising. They sell cookbooks, they sell chutneys that you can take away that've been made there in the kitchen. They have their own branded beers, they have their own, everything's, but you can take a little bit of that magic home with you. And also they've then created like an online presence, so you can just buy the merch online. You can just buy the chutneys online, or you can buy the pickles and actually when they go to farmers markets and things like that, that's all they're selling is their range of chutneys and pickles and compliments and stuff like that. They're not selling the main product, because that has got its own branding and its own sort of like
You've got your difficulties
channel
then
in
going
itself.
from kind of a restaurant to then actually it being pre-packaged or prepared in that way. But actually, your condiments, your chutneys, your pickles, brewing your own beer, all those sorts of things that you can, you can do tasters, you can go to your local fairs, you can have someone walking on the street outside your site asking people if they want to try a little bit. I'm starting in a pizza restaurant, used to do that. I'd be up and down the high street with my slices of pizza on a little tray to get people in, or those tasters to encourage and engage the consumer.
Absolutely. Right, just moving on then to Rob. And I'll just say as well at this point, if anybody does have questions, please don't forget to send them in to us. We'll be happy to take any questions as well. But Rob, I just want to talk to you about technology, because I know you love a bit of tech. So how do we use technology in this sort of space? What's the best ways of using it, and what's coming down the track, I guess, as well?
So, without getting into the POS environment continues to evolve. We went from,
Sorry, Rob,
huge
just explain what
machines to
POS
small.
is, just for anybody that's not sure.
Oh, sorry, point of sale system, I should say.
Thank you. Yeah.
Has gone from big machines to smaller machines to tiny machines. Especially in resort environments, and for hotels in particular, it's going to go very much the way of inclusive. It's ultimately bound there. Places like Vegas are pretty much doing it anyway. Have been doing it for a long time, with and the same way Disney does it, where you check in, you get given a nice wristband that looks like a watch, and you just beep 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 away and buy whatever you wish, and guests love it. They don't like their kids to have it so much, but that's something that happens. One of the things that we do, just touching on the whole marketing piece for merchandising, we really, and again, it goes counterculture to everything that when I started out with, where well, this was even pre-cell phones, where no communication on the outside. Please don't use your phones when you. We actually encourage that now. We want our associates to take moment by moment pictures, guest interactions, anything which is promoting the business, and get that onto Instagram or whatever social media platform that that hotel is using, because we have guests who are on their way to us, who are staying with us, or are on their way home, who will continue to want to keep in touch with what is happening. And we live in an era of moments, right? When we don't, as much as we pre-plan and as much as we post-plan, our guests, or even, our corporate customers, live in the moment. They want to know what is happening, or what happened a minute ago, and what can they be involved with a minute from now. And I think what's been really delightful for hotel environments, those awful signs used to see posted everywhere in frames, and it was all very, very fancy and frankly extremely dull. Now guests are not. You don't need to do that anymore. People want to know if you're doing a tutored wine tasting in the lobby in 30 minutes. We're doing it in 30 minutes. You have to come now. Or if we've got something that's going to be great in the restaurant that night, which is seasonal, artisanal, and handmade, that we're doing a tutored culinary hour, it's happening in 60 minutes. So you need to prepare yourself to be like that. And the funny thing is, as much as we're not trying to arrange people's lives for them, guests really appreciate their time being programmed in a way. They want to understand what is happening next. And if anyone's ever been to an inclusive resort, or that's exactly what happens. You don't know you're being programmed, but you really, really are. And then it turns into, for even those people in extended stay situations, they get used to it. It becomes part of that routine of what they're doing. And the wonderful thing is, even more, that this type of technology programs even being used for mainstay brands now, all the way down to select service and limited service. It will evolve to be that way. Brands like Holiday Inn Express, which was a great stay brand, is now becoming more service program now than ever, because independent owners are choosing to market their hotels that way, which is way above the grade that they would normally be. But with that type of technology, that's the way it's moving.
Very interesting. Thanks, Rob. I think it's it's definitely lots of food for thought about what's coming down the line there, and the changing ways of which we consume as well. I think is you know, and that leads me on to you, Philip, talking about, you know, you started here talking about your amazing vending machines. What's, without giving away the crown jewels and the secrets, but what sort of things are you looking at in the future that, you know, that is going to continue to excite and delight and exceed expectations? What do you see coming down the track?
Well, I mean, for us, the trick, and just furthering on Rob a little bit, for us, the trick is data. You know, technology is in the physical sense, but also in the fact that data is part of technology. Using the data and the insight you have in your business, whether that is a 2-people restaurant business or a 1,000 employee larger multiple unit business, data is everything. And knowing your customers through your CRM tools, or as simple as through the orders people placed in your restaurant, you will know what people like and what they don't like. Use that to your advantage and amplify what people love about you. So if that is your fish and chip sales on Friday, use that and amplify it and make it unique, make it authentic, and sell it. And so for us, what is in store for us next is the things we know our customers love about us, and we're amplifying that. And so I'm not going to give away what it is exactly, but to give you a snippet or an idea of one of those things. Our brand is all about art, sustainability, and community. We know from our customers that the sustainability is a hot topic at the moment. A lot of guests love what we do around that space and some of the creative things we come up with. To give you an insight, one of the items we sell most of out of all of our rooms is actually laundry bags. Why? Why are people buying our laundry bags? Because instead of the plastic usual bags that you see in every bedroom, we re-sew the old pillowcases of our beds into laundry bags, and then we get sewn on there really big. I used to be your pillowcase, and something along those lines. It resonates a lot with people. We never intended it to be like that. We just, try to find sustainable ways of reusing some of our waste products and sew them into pillowcases. But actually, everyone loves them. And so one of the highest selling items for us is our laundry bag. That's what I meant with data. Understand what your guests love and what worked for them, and try to amplify it. So now we put 2 instead of 1 in every room, and we sell more of them. So yeah, that's the giveaway for me.
I love that. But if you look at data, data's so important. Philip, you talked about using data and analysing it. If you look at kind of data information for retail, the percentage of consumers that are kind of leaving fast fashion behind, they're more they're looking at sustainable options, they're looking at your supply chain, they're looking at actually, are they happy to spend a little bit more on something when they know where it's come from, how it's been made, where it's been sourced? And our data absolutely can give us that information to help us sort of guide areas that we promote, that we put emphasis on. But yes, sustainability across retail is massive, as well as is within hospitality.
And absolutely, and Philip, we've had a question actually, and this may be something that all of you could answer. Is, you talked about your pillowcases there, which was obviously a success. The question is from the audience: is there anything that you've put in merchandising that you thought would be a huge success, but has actually turned out to be an epic fail?
It's a good question. I thought they were going to ask where they could buy the pillowcase, but
that'll be the next question, Philip.
Yes, in our case, definitely. I mean, many items, and actually, it's the most obvious items. We put fantastic bottles of champagne in the vending machines, and we thought they were going to be a huge success. But it turns out it's so obvious and so dull that most people are not so interested in it anymore. And I think it goes back to what Rob said. It really doesn't reflect the local area. It's not authentic. It's not unique or different. It's just whatever you expect from a hotel. And so, yeah, the epic failures for me are the stuff that everyone else sells.
Okay, Rob.
Wow, that's a bit of a loaded gun question. I guess I'm going to say, we as much as we've been very successful in the non-alc business when we did a whole merchandising piece based on just non-alc product that was going to be dropped in rooms for our guests, and yeah, that did not go down well at all, which I was really surprised at. But that was just something that it just happened with us.
It's a learning curve.
Absolutely.
Learning experience. And Kat, any examples from your retail days?
I think the main ones were, I think this sort of just reflects what both Philip and Robert said, was when we hadn't taken into account who our local consumer was. So for the brands that I worked in, we were global, we were national. So you might have a different demographic up in Manchester than you did Jermyn Street in London. So if your product, if you're not using kind of your sales, you're not looking at your allocation, and you just using that sort of consistent approach, the same products in the same areas, that way isn't going to work. And you might stock something that doesn't sell because it doesn't fit with your local demographic. You've got to be kind of thinking about what are you selling. So they were probably our biggest fails if we just sort of did a one size fits all approach to the products that we stock, as opposed to being a little bit more tailored around the location and the local cultures and things like that.
Brilliant, thank you. And thank you to the person who asked that question. It's always good to talk about failures and learn what we've learned from them. So brilliant question, thank you. Just conscious of the time, and we're coming up sadly to the end of our time together. But before we do wrap up, I just want to ask each of you for some pointers where people can go and find out some more information, whether it be a podcast, a book to read, a website to go and have a look at, where they could find out some more information about this subject and do further learning and research on it, really. So I might start the other way around the screen this time and start with you, Kat, if I may.
Yeah, well, it would be absolutely remiss of me if I didn't say HIT training for apprenticeships, for other short courses. But I think, that is a fantastic opportunity, looking at ways to train and develop your team, whether it be from apprenticeships, whether it be through training, but broadening kind of your industry knowledge, researching trends. You have a lot of kind of retail online magazines. You've got things like Draper's, you've got other places where you can update your knowledge around trends. And I think that is kind of one of the first starting points if you're thinking about merchandising within hospitality. Who is your customer and what is it that they want?
Perfect, brilliant, thank you, Kat. And Rob?
I would make the suggestion, source out and speak to local retail associations, speak to the people that produce those products. They will tell you, first of all, what's working for them, where it's working for them, and will allow you to understand, the type of activations you need to be successful. And again, the theme of this call is, don't be like anyone else, be your own operation. But there's countless local trade resources that are available. You don't need to read a bunch of fancy textbooks to be able to do this. You're going to find that formula is going to work. But local is the key to this, and a lot of these small manufacturers, they already have that knowledge. It's a case of meeting with them, picking this apart with them, and understanding, as Kat said, understanding your market more thoroughly.
Perfect, brilliant. And Philip?
Look, the obvious thing here is I'm in. Be part of the Institute of Hospitality. Network with people who you meet in the industry, and really get to understand what others are doing. And to further on Rob's local comment, the way I get my inspiration is to go out and visit places and resonate with those that you think work well. You know, I try and eat out and visit other hotels. I spent my last week in another country. I was abroad, and so what did I do? I tried to see and visit as many restaurants and hotels in that country that I could, and through that I got a bunch of inspiration of what they are doing that I didn't think of, and I'm applying that today into my business. So fully agree with Rob. Yes, local, but in a way also not local. Visit other places. You know, what Rob is doing out there on that side of the pond is really interesting stuff. It might not have traveled our way yet, and so it's learning from what others are doing and applying that. And you can do that both yourself at your own initiative, but also through being a member of, say, the Institute of Hospitality or other professional organizations, and learning from others.
Excellent, thank you, Philip. £5 in the post for you for that plug. So, why do our own sales when we can have ambassadors like you three? So thank you very much. That's great. And that brings us sadly to the time. Our time's up here today. I must say a massive thank you to the panel as well. You've been great fun bringing this webinar together. It's been great working with you. You've given up all your time freely in preparing for today and for today's session, and also to CJ, who sadly couldn't be with us right at the last minute, but I know he was really looking forward to being with us as well. So thank you very much. Again, you were amazing. For everybody listening in and watching this, I hope you enjoyed the session. Remember to add this to your CPD portal and add a reflective account. Add what you've learned from it, what you've taken away from it, and some things that you might do differently as a result of today's webinar. Just before we go, just a couple of reminders of things that are coming up at the Institute to get booking on to. So the 13th of June, this Thursday, the Institute of Hospitality North Region are hosting a webinar on clearing the fog on lifelong learning. And I am a panel member for that one, so looking forward to kicking back and just enjoying being on the panel rather than trying to think of lots of questions to ask you all. So join us on Thursday for that one. Next Monday, the 17th of June, is the IoH Annual Awards and Dinner at the Honourable Artillery Club in London. Hopefully we'll see lots of you there then. I know, Rob, you've polishing your bow tie at the moment and in your shoes, and Philip obviously will be coming in a bow tie. It'll be the biggest surprise of the night if he doesn't. So we look forward to seeing you all there at the Annual Awards for Dinner. There's a remaining handful of tickets left, so if you're not booked yet, then please be quick in getting that in. And then on Tuesday next week, we had the very serious subject of clearing the fog on recent employment law changes with two of our business partners, Devonport and Menzies, giving us an update on those important law updates around employment. So all that information can be found on the Institute's website under the events tab, and where you can book onto those various webinars and events. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I hope you all enjoyed the conversations today. I've certainly enjoyed I've certainly learned a lot. Sales and marketing and merchandising is certainly not my background, so I've learned a lot from today. And that's just left me to say thank you very much, and we'll see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Cheerio. Bye-bye.